who was a dear friend of mine. I love that guy, by the way.
Hey.
Oh, that's loud.
Love you right back, man.
Yeah. So we talk about the most comprehensive way of reducing all segments of gun violence is through universal background checks. Then that's a holistic approach. When you drill down into how do we address gun suicides, the most comprehensive way of doing that is twofold. One of having red flag laws, extreme violence protection orders, which are also called, and waiting periods. So when we can place a barrier between someone who might be a danger to themselves, we can literally save their lives. And to think that our state and our country has done very little to address this issue is heartbreaking. And when you hear politicians who will tell you that, oh, it's not a gun violence issue, it's a mental health issue, here in Wisconsin, you have a better chance of getting a gun than you actually get a chance to get your first mental health care appointment. You can get a gun the same day in Wisconsin, but you cannot get a mental health care appointment. So there is only one logical outcome that is possible for someone who might be mentally unwell, just like my mom was. Right. If someone is in a pure state of crisis, and all they have to do is go down to a gun dealer, and they can get a gun the same day, the only outcome that is possible, because we have failed to put a barrier in between them, is the same outcome my mom had. And that is something we have desperately need to change, because if we don't, we're going to keep having more and more gun suicides just like my mom. Yeah. And I think it is an incumbent upon all of us to remember that these are not just statistics. Numbers don't bleed like my mom did.
Right.
My numbers don't cry like I do, like I will have to go through on Monday on her 66th birthday. This is real life. And I hope that more people will realize that we can't keep fighting these same tired old battles and keep thinking this is just going to go away if we yell loud enough. Yeah. We have to actually help elect people like Chris and other legislators who want to actually pass these kind of policies that will save people's lives.
Yeah, that's important. That's important for people to mark their calendars, get out and vote in November, and ask your politicians. When you take the flip side of how I got elected to office, when you're having that conversation with a politician, or if it's on social media, ask where they stand on these issues.
Right.
Ask where you stand on these red flag laws. Ask where they stand. What are you going to do to prevent the next mass shooting? And demand an answer. You know, I think of there's people, and my family's not politically active at all. They usually text me the day of the election, say, "Who am I supposed to be? Where do I vote? And who am I supposed to be voting for?" But my mom, I take as a good barometer. She called and she's like, "I need my Congress. I need to know who my congressman is," and it was the guy you ran against, by the way, Curry. And she did vote for you.
I appreciate it.
I will. And then she said, one, who is it? Who is my congressperson? And then two, how do I get a hold of him? How can I call him? And so I walked her through how to call and make sure you put your address and make sure you make it clear that you're a constituent and you want a response. Because she was saying, and it finally hit her, and she said, they're worried about money more than kids, and I'm sick of it. And she does not care that much about politics. But I think there's a lot of people who just look at this and they realize, wait, this should have changed. This should have stopped years ago. Yes. And these guys, they keep on offering thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers are very helpful. That's good. But while they're thinking, while there's thoughts, those thoughts should extend to actually doing something and actually changing something about it. Yes, and for some reason, they never get past that point. And if they can't, we need to help them by getting them out of office and getting people in there who actually will.
Curry, thank you.
If you look at the way that politics has gone since 2016, there weren't many candidates that were either talking about gun violence prevention or running on it. I did. And I wasn't afraid of it. I ran in one of the most conservative districts in America and still was unafraid to talk about the issue. Yeah. Back then, it was considered like the third rail of politics to talk about guns. Now, you've got more and more candidates who have the courage to simply talk about the issue and talk about how to solve it and are unafraid of what the gun lobby might do. Right. The gun lobby is so afraid now that they're no longer putting out the historical ratings that they gave to people. I can't even go on the NRA's website and see the S that I proudly earned. Because they're afraid, because it is now an albatross that we can hang on those candidates' heads. We want to make sure that candidates, when they run, we want to know where they stand on this issue. If they don't, they don't get our voice, and our support.
Thanks for breaking through that, Cree. Yeah, thanks for breaking through that.
I'll take the credit. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Cree. Hey, we'd like to thank you for calling in and give us just paint a picture for us right now how what it's like right there where you're at as far as the turnout and what's going on.
So there were about 100 people that showed up, mostly young kids and students, those who actually care about their community and their fellow human beings.
Okay.
We are actually leaving. We started out going to Paul Ryan's office. Of course, he was not there because he doesn't really represent anybody but the gun death lobby anyway. And so next we're going up to Madison to the Alliance Center, and they're going to have a town hall event there. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody come to Milwaukee tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, and hope to see you all there.
Thank you so much for calling in, and again, my condolences and thank you for what you do.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much.
All right, brother. Bye.
So sometimes, we've talked about this a little bit, but sometimes it feels like regular people don't have a voice in what happens in government. Mm-hmm. And in Moms Demand Action in Milwaukee, we're trying to address this problem in our way by hosting advocacy skill workshops. And our next advocacy skill workshop is going to be on June 25th, on Monday, at 6 o'clock at the Martin Luther King branch of the Milwaukee Public Library. And at that event, we're going to be talking about how people can use their personal story, just like Cree does, as a tool for advocacy to create change. So, Senator Larson, in your experience as a senator, what should citizens do to make sure that we have a voice in our government, and how can we reach our elected officials and make a difference?
Use it. I mean, I think it's the very basic civic table stakes to, one, vote. But voting is not the beginning and the end of civic participation, right? It is just the participant card that says that, okay, I will act based off of the things that I say and the beliefs that I hold. And so making sure that you vote in every single election and taking that time to be able to educate yourself. And now that technology, the power of supercomputers can be harnessed in the palm of your hand while you're standing at your polling location, you can look up candidates that you might not know right then on the spot and see what their positions are, and take your time if you need to, but that's like 10 minutes, right, to be able to make sure that you exercise your vote. Beyond that, of making sure that you are contacting your elected official. Since I've been in office now for 10 years, and one of the things that still surprises me is how little we hear from people unsolicited. I do outreach as much as possible, hold town halls, we send out surveys, and we'll call people to follow up with them if they request that, and just trying to keep that conversation going about where people stand. So I'm always in touch with what the pulse is of the 7th Senate District, which runs Oak Creek all the way up to the east side of Milwaukee, WM. But even on what would be considered contentious issues, we don't get that many phone calls. We don't get that many emails. We might get a little bit of Facebook splash here and there, but even on big contentious issues, we do not hear from people that much. And I think that may be a lot of people just kind of shrug and think, well, my voice isn't going to change anything, or this elected official is the way that they are, and I can't impact that. And I think that there are tons of examples that that's not true. Okay. That is not true, and at the very least, it will prevent people from moving forward on bad ideas. I've heard 2 of them in the last 48 hours. There was one they were trying to repeat. This is not necessarily gun violence related, but it's still important, and that is that there was somebody who was trying to change the rulemaking in the state, which would have made it that much harder to hold companies accountable for environmental bad acting. Okay. And they contacted their legislators and made sure it was clear that this bill that they were trying to pass would have mucked up a whole lot more. And it was about to pass, and they said, well, is that true? And they looked into it, and they realized that was true. Boom, that was it. Testimony of one person at a committee was able to be enough to be able to knock that bill off its axis and kill it for a session. And that's empowering to this person, and so he's telling everybody. The other one is more widespread, and I think it's more not just one person, but it takes the voices of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and that is the Trump individual policy of family separation, where this is one man, the president, who decided on his own that he was going to separate kids from their families, and he was going to implement this policy and try and lie about it and say that it was other people's fault. People got so up in arms. People were showing up at these detention centers in Texas. They were showing up at airports where it was rumored that kids were coming in on flights, unaccompanied minors that had been separated from their parents. People were contacting their congressmen, their senators, that this became a flood in the last week. And this has really become noticed in the last, 8 days? And in that time, this is the first major time that I can remember that Donald Trump backed off and changed his mind. He didn't come on and say, "Oh yeah, I changed my mind. This is bad." He just pretended he never did it, and he just was forced into it. But that's not true. This was him 100%. And so that's the power of individuals making their voices heard and pushing for this and making sure that something did happen. And that you may not get that initial, what you really want out of it, which is, having a U.S. senator or your congressman be like, "You're right, I just changed my mind." But what it does do is it had those back channel notices to the White House to say that the switchboard is blowing up. People are not happy about this in Wisconsin. People are not happy about this across the country. And having that hit enough, that enough Congress people and senators were saying that you need to stop this now, because this is gonna ruin their chances at re-election, their individual chances at re-election, and the party was going down sinking. And they said, "You need to stop this." That he finally did it. There was stuff in place where they were going to continue and continue and continue. They were contacting the federal military bases to bring more kids on. They were going to go all out. He stopped in his tracks, and it's still hitting back. People are still speaking out, and so it can have that impact. That should be empowering to people to say, you know what, whether it's an issue that you think is small, that won't have an impact, or it's huge and your voice will be lost in the ocean of sound, it matters. It matters that you use your voice as much and as often as you are comfortable with. And you know what, maybe a little bit more than you're comfortable with sometimes, because if you're out of your comfort zone, you're in a good place.
Yeah, that was one of the tweets that caught my attention from you. It was like, today President Trump buckled under pressure from a growing number of bipartisan representatives, senators, and community activists, refusing to remain silent. History will remember this moment, and Governor Walker has no excuse for his silence in this crisis.
That's right. That's right. You wrote that, and for the listeners, he wrote this whole thing down. He didn't even print this out, just so you know.
I go all out for my listeners.
You did your homework. I like it. And this is one where Scott Walker had a chance. Even Republican governors came out and said, "We're withdrawing our National Guard troops, our National Guard troops back to our state."
Okay.
Republican governors were doing it, and first it was East Coast governors, and they were like, "Oh well, East Coast areas," but then it was Tennessee.
Wow.
That's a red state,
right?
And Scott Walker, when asked, would you send the troops down? He said, "Oh yeah, we're going to send our National Guard troops to the border," and that he was going to keep them there. And then he asked, "Well, what about this policy that Trump has?" And do you know what his response? "Oh, that's a federal issue. We're not that's something we're not weighing in on. We can't let him get away with that. We have to remember that come this November, that he sided this very divisive time. He chose his side." Okay. And he did it within I want to say it was like a day before Trump finally admitted this was a bad idea. Scott Walker said, "I'm with Donald Trump. I'll stand with Donald Trump on this." He didn't say that directly, but his policies and what he was doing. So yeah, this is that's a time, and you know what? When somebody makes a decision like that, we shouldn't be looking at them the same way. You have a chance to side with dignity. You have a chance to side with keeping families together. Yes. You have a chance to side with the American spirit. The story we tell across the country, and the story we tell ourselves of what America is, right?
Yes.
We are the hope. We are the last best hope for mankind, that we are the place, we are a nation of immigrants, we are the place where anybody can come and create the American dream. Yes. And that story is Trump would have it told would just be a lie and trying to erode that. Scott Walker stood with Trump on that side.
Caller, go ahead. You're on with Mothers Against Gun Violence, QuestNation. Caller? Going. Gone. So this legislation here, he's going to keep the children with their parents, but then send them back? Or
Trump, how Trump changed it now?
Yes.
So here's the mess. He definitely relieved